I felt his breath against my neck, warm and deliberate, as his fingers traced the edge of my blouse. "We shouldn't be doing this," I whispered, but my body betrayed me, leaning into his touch. His hands found the buttons, working them open with practiced ease. "Your wife," I started, but he silenced me with a kiss that tasted of wine and forbidden promises. The dining room table pressed against my back as he lifted me onto it, his eyes dark with intention. "She doesn't have to know," he murmured, his voice rough with desire. I knew this was wrong, knew it could destroy everything I'd worked for, but as his mouth found the sensitive spot below my ear, I couldn't bring myself. Цукер понравилось начало? Ставьте лайк, подписывайтесь, пишите в комментариях, что вас зацепило. The invitation had come 3 days earlier, delivered through his assistant with professional courtesy that masked each year, something deeper. "Mr. Henderson would like to discuss your quarterly projections over dinner. Friday, 7 o'clock. I'd stared at the cream-colored card, my pulse quickening. Liam Henderson, my boss's husband, successful entrepreneur, and the man who'd been occupying my thoughts far more than he should have. I'd worked for Richardson and Associates for 2 years, climbing from junior analyst to senior manager under Linda Richardson's mentorship. She was brilliant, demanding, and completely devoted to her work. But lately I'd noticed the cracks in her marriage. The way Liam's calls went unanswered, how she'd cancel dinner plans for client meetings, the distance in her eyes when his name came up. Friday evening found me standing on their doorstep in Oklahoma City's exclusive Nichols Hills neighborhood, clutching a bottle of wine and second-guessing every decision that had led me here. The house was stunning, modern architecture with floor-to-ceiling windows that revealed glimpses of the life inside. Liam answered the door himself, no staff in sight. "Cora," he said, his smile warm but his eyes holding something more complex. "You look beautiful." I'd chosen my outfit carefully, a midnight blue dress that was professional enough to justify but fitted enough to... What? I wasn't entirely sure what game I was playing, but his appreciative gaze told me I was playing it well. "Thank you for having me," I replied, stepping into the foyer. The house was even more impressive inside, minimalist but warm, with art that probably cost more than my annual salary. "Where's Linda?" "London," he said, taking my coat. "Emergency client meeting. She sends her regrets." His fingers brushed mine as he relieved me of the wine bottle. "Shall we?" The dining room was intimate, lit by candles that cast dancing shadows across the mahogany table. He'd cooked, or at least he claimed to have cooked. The meal was perfect, paired with wine that made my head swim just enough to lower my inhibitions. "You're very talented," he said over the main course, his eyes never leaving mine. "Linda doesn't appreciate what she has." "She's an incredible mentor," I replied carefully, though something in his tone made my stomach flutter. I wasn't talking about professionally. The words hung between us, heavy with implication. His hand reached across the table, fingers brushing mine. "You're wasted in that office, Cora. You could do so much more." The wine was making me bold. "What did you have in mind?" His smile was slow, predatory. "I have several ideas." We moved to his study after dinner, a room that was purely masculine, leather and wood and the faint scent of expensive cologne. He poured brandy from a crystal decanter, his movements graceful, confident. When he handed me the glass, his fingers lingered against mine. "Tell me about yourself," he said, settling onto the leather sofa beside me. "The real you, not the corporate version." The brandy burned, loosening my tongue. I found myself telling him things I'd never shared with anyone. My dreams of starting my own consulting firm, my frustration with Linda's perfectionism, my loneliness, in a city where I'd built a career but few real connections. "You're remarkable," he said when I finished, his voice soft. "Linda doesn't see it, does she? How you light up when you talk about your dreams." I felt tears prick my eyes, whether from the alcohol or his words, I wasn't sure. "She sees me as an employee, nothing more. I see you as so much more." His hand cupped my cheek, thumb brushing away a tear I hadn't realized had fallen. "You deserve someone who recognizes your worth." The air between us crackled with tension. I knew I should leave, should maintain the professional boundaries that kept my world safe and predictable. Instead, I leaned into his touch. "Liam," I whispered, his name a question and a plea. "I know," he replied, understanding everything I couldn't say. "I know this is complicated, but I can't stop thinking about you." His confession shattered the last of my resistance. When he leaned in, I met him halfway, our lips connecting in a kiss that tasted of brandy and poor decisions. His hands tangled in my hair, pulling me closer, and I melted against him. "We shouldn't," I breathed against his mouth, even as my fingers worked the buttons of his shirt. "No," he agreed, his lips finding the sensitive spot below my ear. We absolutely shouldn't, but his hands were already sliding the straps of my dress down my shoulders, and I was arching into his touch, lost in the sensation of being wanted, truly wanted, for the first time in months. He lifted me easily, carrying me to the desk that dominated one corner of the room. Papers scattered as he set me down, his body pressing between my thighs, his mouth claiming mine with increasing urgency. My dress pooled around my waist as his hands explored, mapping every curve with reverent attention. "You're so beautiful," he murmured against my collarbone, his breath hot against my skin. "So responsive." I gasped as his mouth moved lower, his hands steady and sure. Every touch sent electricity through my body, building a tension that had been coiling inside me for weeks. The rational part of my mind screamed warnings about my job, about Linda, about the consequences. But they were drowned out by the rushing in my ears and the heat pooling in my center. His fingers found the edge of my silk lingerie, teasing, testing. "Tell me you want this," he said, his voice rough with need. "I want this," I breathed, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. "I want you." That was all the permission he needed. His mouth found mine again as his hands worked with practiced efficiency, removing the barriers between us. I helped him with trembling fingers, desperate to feel his skin against mine. When he finally pressed against me, we both stilled, savoring the moment of connection. His eyes met mine, dark with desire but also something deeper, a tenderness that made my heart race for entirely different reasons. "You're perfect," he whispered, beginning to move in a rhythm that made me gasp and cling to his shoulders. The world narrowed to just us, the slide of skin against skin, the sound of our breathing growing ragged, the exquisite tension building between us. His hands gripped my hips, guiding me, supporting me as I moved with him, chasing the pleasure that seemed just out of reach. "Let go," he murmured against my ear. "Let me take care of you." His words, combined with a particularly skilled movement of his hips, sent me spiraling over the edge. I cried out, my body tensing and then releasing in waves of sensation that left me shaking. He followed moments later, his own release accompanied by a groan that vibrated through both our bodies. We stayed connected for long moments, catching our breath, processing what had just happened. His forehead rested against mine, his breathing slowly returning to normal. "That was," I started, then trailed off, unable to find words. "Incredible," he finished, pressing a soft kiss to my lips. "You're incredible." Reality began to creep back in as we slowly separated, gathering our scattered clothes. What had I done? I'd just been intimate with my boss's husband, in their home, while she was out of the country working. The magnitude of my betrayal hit me like a physical blow. "I should go," I said, stepping into my dress with shaking hands. "Cora, wait." He caught my hand, fully dressed now, but still rumpled from our encounter. "This doesn't have to be complicated." "Doesn't it?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I work for your wife, Liam. This is about as complicated as it gets." His expression grew serious. "What Linda doesn't know won't hurt her, and what we have, it's special. I felt it the first time I met you at the company party." The memory made my stomach flip. He'd been charming that night, attentive in a way that had made me feel special. I'd told myself it was just his natural charisma, but now I wondered if he'd been planning this all along. "I need to think," I said, pulling away from his touch. "This is my career we're talking about." "Your career will be fine," he said, confidence, radiating from every word. "Better than fine. I have connections, opportunities that Linda could never offer you." The implication hung in the air between us. Was he offering to help my career in exchange for this? The thought made me feel sick and excited in equal measure. "I really need to go," I repeated, grabbing my purse and heading for the door. He didn't try to stop me this time, but his voice followed me down the hallway. "Think about what I said, Cora. About what we could have together." The drive home was a blur of streetlights and recriminations. I'd crossed a line tonight that couldn't be uncrossed. The taste of him was still on my lips, the feeling of his hand still burning on my skin. Part of me wanted to turn around, go back, lose myself in the fantasy he was offering. But the rational part of my mind was screaming warnings. Linda Richardson wasn't just my boss. She was my mentor, the woman who'd taken a chance on me when no one else would. She'd taught me everything I knew about the business, pushed me to be better, opened doors I never could have opened alone, and I'd just betrayed her in the most intimate way possible. The weekend passed in a haze of anxiety and conflicted feelings. Every time my phone buzzed, I expected it to be Linda calling to fire me, having somehow discovered what had happened, but the calls never came. Instead, I received a single text from Liam on Sunday evening. Dinner was perfect. Looking forward to our next meeting. Monday morning arrived with Oklahoma's typical unpredictability, gray skies, and the threat of storms. I dressed carefully, choosing a conservative suit that screamed professionalism, as if the right clothes could somehow erase what had happened on Friday night. Linda was back from London, looking as polished and in control as ever. She breezed into the office with coffee and croissants, distributing them to the team with the efficiency of a general deploying troops. "Cora," she said, pausing at my desk. "How was your weekend? I hope Liam didn't bore you too much with his business talk on Friday." My mouth went dry. She knew. She had to know. But her expression was perfectly neutral, giving nothing away. "It was informative," I managed. "He has some interesting perspectives on market trends." "He certainly does," she replied with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "We should grab coffee later. I want to hear your thoughts on the Henderson portfolio." The day dragged on, every interaction with Linda feeling loaded with hidden meaning. Did she suspect? Was she testing me? Or was I simply projecting my own guilt onto innocent conversations? The coffee meeting never happened. Linda was pulled into emergency calls with clients all afternoon, but as I packed up to leave, she appeared at my desk again. "Rain check on that coffee," she said. "But I did want to mention, Liam was quite impressed with you on Friday. He suggested we consider you for the Morrison account." My heart stopped. The Morrison account was huge, a career-making opportunity that would put me on track for partnership. It was exactly the kind of break I'd been hoping for. That's wonderful," I stammered. "Thank you." "Don't thank me," Linda said, with that same unreadable smile. "Thank Liam. It was his idea entirely." She walked away, leaving me staring after her, my mind racing. Was this what Liam had meant about opportunities? Was he already making good on his implied promise to help my career? My phone buzzed with a text. "Hope you had a good day at work. Dinner tomorrow? I have more ideas to discuss." I stared at the message for a long moment, my finger hovering over the keyboard. I could still walk away, could pretend Friday night never happened and focus on my career, but the Morrison account was right there, dangling like a carrot, and Liam was the one holding the string. Before I could talk myself out of it, I typed back, "What time?" The response came immediately. 7, my place. Linda's working late. I deleted the conversation and slipped my phone into my purse, my hands trembling slightly. I was walking into dangerous territory, but the promise of career advancement was too tempting to resist. And if I was being honest with myself, the memory of Liam's hands on my skin, the way he'd made me feel desired and powerful, was just as compelling as any professional opportunity. Tuesday evening found me back at the Henderson house, this time wearing a dress that was decidedly less professional. If I was going to play this game, I was going to play it well. Liam answered the door with a smile that made my knees weak. "You came. Did you doubt I would?" "Never," he said, but there was relief in his eyes. "Come in. I have wine breathing." This time, there was no pretense of business discussion. We both knew why I was there. The tension between us was immediate and electric, crackling in the air as we shared dinner and made small talk that danced around the real subject. "Linda mentioned the Morrison account," I said finally, unable to keep the professional concerns completely at bay. "Did she?" His smile was satisfied. "I thought you might be interested. It's a huge opportunity. You deserve huge opportunities, Cora. You just need someone who recognizes your potential." The implication was clear. He was that someone, and this was the price of his recognition. Part of me should have been offended, should have walked out in righteous indignation. Instead, I felt a thrill of power. I was desirable enough that he was willing to use his influence for me. "What exactly are you offering?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. "Partnership," he said simply, in every sense of the word. "Professional opportunities, financial backing for your own firm eventually, and..." He reached across the table, his fingers intertwining with mine. "Personal fulfillment you've never experienced." The offer was intoxicating. Everything I'd ever wanted, wrapped up in a package that required only one compromise: my integrity. But as his thumb traced circles on my palm, sending heat up my arm, that compromise felt smaller and smaller. "Show me," I whispered. He didn't need to be asked twice. This time, when he carried me to the study, there was no hesitation, no whispered concerns about consequences. I was all in, ready to embrace whatever this dangerous liaison would bring. His touch was more confident this time, his hands knowing exactly where to find the spots that made me gasp and arch against him. He took his time, building the tension, slowly, methodically, until I was trembling with need. "Please," I breathed, my hands fisting in his shirt. "Please what?" he asked, his voice teasing. "Please don't stop," I said, abandoning the last of my pride. "Please make me feel the way you did on Friday." His answer was to lift me onto the desk again, but this time he took his time, exploring every inch of exposed skin with his mouth. I lost track of time, lost in the sensations he was creating, the way he seemed to know exactly what I needed. When he finally joined with me, it was with a reverence that took my breath away. This wasn't just physical. There was an emotional component that scared and thrilled me in equal measure. "You're mine now," he whispered against my ear as we moved together. "Say it." "I'm yours," I gasped, the words torn from me by pleasure and something deeper. "And I'll take care of you," he promised, "in every way." The climax, when it came, was even more intense than before. I cried out, not caring who might hear, completely lost in the moment. He followed seconds later, his own release accompanied by words of praise and possession that made my heart race. Afterward, as we lay entwined on the leather sofa, I tried to process what had just happened. I'd just committed myself to something that could destroy my career, my reputation, everything I'd worked for. But as Liam's fingers traced lazy patterns on my skin, I couldn't bring myself to regret it. "The Morrison account is just the beginning," he said softly. "I have plans for you, Cora. Big plans." "What about Linda?" I asked, the question I'd been avoiding. "What about her?" His tone was dismissive. "She's too focused on work to notice what's happening right under her nose. Besides, she doesn't appreciate what she has, in business or in marriage." The casual way he dismissed his wife should have been a red flag, but I was too caught up in the fantasy he was spinning to pay attention to the warning signs. "When will I know about Morrison?" I asked instead. "Soon," he promised, pressing a kiss to my temple. "Very soon, but first I want to see you again. Thursday?" I nodded, already addicted to the feeling of being wanted, of being chosen. Thursday. As I drove home that night, I tried to tell myself I was being smart, strategic. I was using him just as much as he was using me. But deep down, I knew the truth. I was in over my head, caught in a web of desire and ambition that was growing more complicated by the day. Thursday's encounter was even more intense, if possible. Liam was becoming bolder, more possessive, his touch more demanding. And I was responding to it, craving the way he made me feel, powerful and desirable and utterly consumed. "I can't stop thinking about you," he confessed as we lay together, afterward. "You're becoming an obsession." The words should have alarmed me, but instead they sent a thrill through me. I was becoming necessary to him, important in a way that went beyond the physical. "Good," I whispered, surprising myself with my boldness. "I want to be." It was true. Somewhere along the way, this had stopped being about career advancement and started being about something much more dangerous, genuine feeling. I was falling for him, hard and fast, and I didn't know how to stop. The Morrison account came through the following week, just as Liam had promised. Linda presented it to me, with professional pride, praising my qualifications and potential. If she suspected anything about how I'd really earned the opportunity, she gave no sign. "You've really impressed Liam," she said as we went over the contract details. "He speaks very highly of your strategic thinking." "He's been very supportive," I replied carefully. "He has good instincts about people," Linda continued. "I trust his judgment completely." The irony wasn't lost on me. She trusted her husband's judgment about me, never knowing that his evaluation was based on entirely different criteria than she imagined. That evening, I met Liam to celebrate. The restaurant was upscale, intimate, the kind of place where we could sit close together without drawing attention. He ordered champagne, toasting my success with a smile that made my heart flutter. "To new beginnings," he said, raising his glass. "To new beginnings," I echoed, though I wasn't entirely sure what we were beginning. As the evening progressed, Liam's hand found mine across the table, his thumb tracing my knuckles in a gesture that was becoming familiar. "I have something to tell you," he said, his voice serious. My stomach tightened. "What is it?" "Linda's going to be traveling more," he said. "The London office wants her to oversee the European expansion. She'll be gone for weeks at a time." That's a big opportunity for her," I said, though part of me wondered if he'd had something to do with her sudden international responsibilities. "It is," he agreed, "and it means more opportunities for us, more time together." The implications were clear. With Linda out of the country regularly, our affair could deepen, become more than stolen moments in his study. The thought excited and terrified me in equal measure. "Liam," I started, but he cut me off. "I know what you're going to say," he said. "That this is getting complicated, that we should be careful, but I don't want to be careful anymore, Cora. I want you in my life, really in it." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I want you to move in with me," he said, his eyes intense. "When Linda's traveling, when she comes back, whenever, I want you there." The offer was stunning in its boldness. He was asking me to become his mistress in the most literal sense, to share his home and his bed while his wife built her career on another continent. I need to think about it," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Don't think," he said, leaning closer. "Feel. What does your heart tell you?" My heart was telling me I was in love with him, had been since that first night in his study. But my brain was screaming warnings about the consequences, about what would happen when Linda inevitably found out. There's so much at stake, I said. There's so much to gain, he countered. A life together, a future we build on our own terms. I can give you everything you've ever wanted, Cora. The question is, are you brave enough to take it? Looking into his eyes, feeling the warmth of his hand in mine, I realized I'd already made my decision. Maybe I'd made it that first night, when I'd let him carry me to his desk and claim me. Maybe I'd made it when I'd agreed to the Morrison account, accepting the first payment in a transaction that was about so much more than business. Yes, I whispered. Yes, I'm brave enough. His smile was triumphant, possessive. Then it settled. We'll start this weekend. Linda leaves for London on Sunday. Have you ever been faced with an opportunity that could change your life but required you to compromise your values? How far would you go for career advancement, and where would you draw the line? Sometimes the heart wants what it wants, even when the mind knows better. What would you have done in my situation? Walked away from temptation or embraced the dangerous liaison? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Trust me, you won't want to miss what comes next.